So did the Picts really found Poland's first dynasty? Now sometimes genetic studies only show what we have long expected, and other times they deliver up massive shocks that are entirely unexpected. But there are also times when sensationalized claims are built up intentionally, which the evidence doesn't actually support. So you may have heard that in June of 2025, a research team in Poland claimed to have discovered a massive historical upset when carrying out excavations and genetic studies on members of the founding dynasty of the medieval Kingdom of Poland. Now, a team of one of Poland's top universities has been working since 2023 to discover the genetic origins of the Polish people and state, taking genetic samples from some of the early graves associated with the first ruling dynasty of Poland. Now, what they claim to have found shocked the world. A genetic sample believed to belong to Wenceslaus I carried the Y haplogroup R1b S747. Now, why this is significant is that haplogroup is extremely rare in Poland and elsewhere in mainland Europe, but it is found in northeastern Britain among the Picts and their descendants. Now, the research team concluded and announced to the world that the first ruling dynasty in Polish history was actually most likely of Pictish origin. So when these findings were proclaimed publicly in June, it caused an uproar of excitement and even anger in some cases. Everything unexpected does. More importantly, we should be asking if it's actually true. Did the Piast dynasty descend from the Picts? Sure, it might sound fascinating, but what is the actual evidence? How trustworthy is the science behind it? Are there any archaeological or historical points of contact? So the Piasts ruled the Poles between the 10th and 14th century. They were not known as the Piasts during their own time. Rather, their name is ascribed to their line by historians due to an origin tale about them preserved in the Gesta Principium Polanorum, Deeds of the Princes of the Poles. Now, the work was written sometime between 1112 and 1117, and its writer is identified only as Gallus, meaning the Gaul. It's the earliest account of Polish history. To extol the great deeds of the Polish kings, the author purports to tell of his ancestral origins. His family history began with Piast the Wheelwright, son of Kosciuszko. Say that 5 times fast. The name Piast may actually come from the word for wheel hub, or it could mean a custodian, signifying that he became king through being a custodian of a household. While some claim Kosciuszko to be a transliteration of the Hastingi. Hastingi. Such an easier word to say. Which could signify a Germanic origin, while others think that it's actually from a Slavic word for tail. Piast had a son named Semoit, and was hosting a 7-year-old birthday haircutting ceremony of pagan origin for him. 2 unexpected guests show up at the party, and Piast invited them to join. Now these guests, probably in the original tale, were gods in disguise, and in repayment of the hospitality shown to them, they place a magical spell on Piast's son that ensured his larder was always full, and from this blessing he was made king. Now, nothing in this origin legend actually suggests a Pictish element, or even a foreign one of any kind. Even if we agree that the name Kosciuszko is of Germanic origin, Germans had resided in parts of Poland since at least the late Iron Age. The Piasts, starting with Mieszko I, who reigned from 960 to 992, was known for taking Germanic wives. Now, this was necessitated by the politics of the time, because to make an alliance it was often done through marriage of the noble families. But there is no known British influence or marriages. Even if there had been, it would have been a woman sent to marry into the Polish family, not a man carrying his Y haplogroup. So there is nothing historically known which could support the idea of the Piast being of British origin. But now it's time to turn to the genetics and examine what exactly was discovered. Now, it's far from true that the genetic results have gone unchallenged. Most prominent among the detractors has been Dr. Dariusz Blazizuk from the Faculty of Archaeology at the University of Warsaw. Now, he points out that this data might be incorrect due to sampling degradation, contamination, or incorrect sequencing. Now, I am in no way able to judge this, but I have noticed that amateur geneticists online are likewise skeptical and comment on the poor quality of the samples and how it was nearly, if not entirely, impossible to get a full sequencing to be able to determine something more specific than, say, R1b generally. More importantly, I think, is that we don't know for sure who the sample is actually from. There were issues around the radiocarbon dating not matching up, and more importantly, even if the sample does belong to Wenceslaus I, he was a member of a minor branch of the family, in which a paternity event could have occurred. In other words, infidelity. Now, out of 197 whole genome sequencings that the team obtained from a total of 474, only one of them showed up as R1b S747. If that had been the true haplogroup of the most powerful ruling family in Poland's formative history, including during pagan times, we would expect that haplogroup to have become more widespread in the Polish population, or at the very least present in some concentration. Successful males, especially before Christian enforcement of monogamy, spread their Y haplogroups massively. Even after Christianization, this remained the case, only tempered slightly because there were many out-of-marriage relationships. Powerful people can have more children who are likewise wealthy and powerful, and who go on to have many children, etc. So during the period when they were in power, in graveyards associated with them, only a single result showed R1b S747. And to me, this suggests that the haplogroup was not, in fact, dominant in the dynasty. Consider how many people can claim descent from Robert the Bruce. It's around 200 million. Now, only a fraction of those are direct male line descendants, but his haplogroup, RDF27, is carried by many people in Scotland today, around 5% of the population, and its presence can almost entirely be attributed directly to his family line, as it was not present in Scotland at all before around 1000 AD. This is the impact that a single successful family can have over a few hundred years of prominence. Okay, but for the sake of argument, let's say that the entire dynasty was the descendant of a Pictish noble. How would this story have looked? Now, it seems unlikely that a Pictish noble would have ended up in Poland, but potentially it could have happened that a rival for power fled to the sanctuary of some contact that he had amongst the nobles in Poland. Being of noble blood, he could have wedded a third daughter or something of a Polish family, banking on the prospect that he might return to Scotland and take power. However, when this failed to happen, he and his descendants simply merged and, within a few generations, forgot their origins, so that even the medieval tales had no hint of it. Yet his line managed to rise to power. Now, if we go full romance, a Pictish royal family whose kingdom was being ravaged by the Vikings, Scots, and Norse decided to flee to Poland. Somehow, they had trading contacts with Poles. Who knows? They settle down there, learn Proto-Slavic, swear a pact never to reveal their true ancestry, and then rise to become kings of the Poles. Less romantically, perhaps, it wasn't obtained directly through a Pict, but through a Germanic source from an Anglo-Saxon or Viking noble who was the descendant of a Pict who had been absorbed by either group. Now, in some regions of Scotland, like Orkney, the Picts were absorbed culturally and ethnically by the Vikings, and quite possibly one of their lines could have made its way east. There is, of course, another angle to consider with this, and other similar sensational stories these days, that not only was the claim made for the sole purpose of being sensational, or to conform to ideological views, the lead researcher, Professor Marek Figlerowicz, in an interview he gave back in 2016, already was working with the hypothesis that the Piasts were foreign, and he was comparing the process of the formation of Poland to that which led to the formation of Russia, a Viking ruling class which established the state. Now, the two situations are not comparable. For Russia, there is clear historical attestation of this, both from the records of the Rus themselves and from outside commentators. There is etymology that can be traced back, such as the name Rus itself to Germanic origins. With the Piasts, there is literally no trace whatsoever of any British influence at all. So here's the problem. When someone has clearly set out for over a decade to try and prove that the Piasts were foreign, and then makes a sensational announcement on very flimsy evidence, we should, at the very least, be extremely skeptical. I was the first one to be very excited about this announcement. I have Pictish origins myself, and I'm certainly not above thinking that it would be really cool if Polish kings were Picts, but it is very, very unlikely that this is actually the case. And even if they did have some kind of male progenitor who was from Britain at some point, they clearly had no knowledge of it. Now, perhaps the team has further information that they will publish, and if so, hopefully they will do so soon, but as of now, I wouldn't put too much money on a Pictish ruling class of Poland. Well, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Consider supporting the channel through Patreon, PayPal, through YouTube Super Stickers, or become a member of the channel to gain access to member-exclusive video content. Thank you all for your support, and as always, stand tall.